Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into some really potent source material. It's an audio excerpt called The End of an Era,
Mm.
and it features this speaker making a very powerful, very personal declaration. He believes we are, and this is his quote, at the end of an age.
Right.
And not just that, but caught in a huge, epic, historical, unprecedented, incredibly seismic battle going on right now for the soul of humanity.
Wow, that's quite a statement.
It really is. So our mission today is to unpack that urgent message. We want to look at how he sees global forces, his own kind of surprising personal journey, and what he's asking you, the listener, to do.
And it's definitely a specific worldview he's presenting. Very passionate. We're going to explore the different layers of his argument. These claims about mind control, societal influence, and then his vision for some kind of counter movement.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, our aim here isn't to agree or disagree with what he's saying. It's really about understanding what he's trying to convey and why he thinks it's so critical right now. We're here to help you navigate this information.
Absolutely. So let's start right there with that opening declaration, the end of an age. He seems quite certain, maybe, he says, the beginning of a new era, but definitively, we are now there.
Mm-hmm. It sets a really dramatic tone right off the bat.
No kidding. And then he immediately gives his reason why we're there.
Right. He jumps straight into this idea that, quote, globalists want to control human thought and human paradigm so they can direct our evolution in their own words.
Direct our evolution. That's a heavy concept.
It is. And he adds that he believes our DNA is basically devolving and that we're under attack. So for him, this isn't just, a political disagreement. It's fundamental, existential.
Okay, so if that's the premise, this attack on thought, on DNA, on our very evolution,
Yeah.
it makes sense why he'd frame it as this monumental struggle.
Exactly. Which brings us back to that phrase. A huge, epic, historical, unprecedented, incredibly seismic battle going on right now for the soul of humanity.
He does admit, I don't have all the answers, but he stresses he is conscious, and he's definitely in the fight.
And what seems to be driving him, personally, he talks about empathy. A deep feeling for his dog, his cats, his children.
Huh. Interesting starting point.
Yeah, but then he expands it outward to everybody. He feels the current system, quote, acts like none of that's real, but it is.
So this empathy, this connection, is real even if the system ignores it.
Precisely. And he believes, quote, our kindness is not weakness. It's the fact that we've transcended them and are part of something bigger. Kindness as a strength, almost a superpower in this fight.
That's a powerful idea. It makes you wonder what experiences led him to this point. He shares some quite interesting anecdotes about his past.
Right. He mentions being in big Hollywood movies about 15 years back.
Right, and going to A-list parties maybe 10 years ago. He even names people like Brad Pitt and Mel Gibson.
Mm-hmm. And meeting senators in places like D.C. and New York and L.A. Sounds like he was really rubbing shoulders with the elite.
You'd think so. But his takeaway is, well, pretty negative.
Extremely negative. He calls those experiences empty, creepy, even satanic and self-centered. Just total disillusionment.
Wow. So he rejects that whole scene.
Mhm.
What about the money, the material success?
He talks about being offered significant sums, $1 million, $3 million, then $10 million apparently to sell out.
Okay.
But then he kind of downplays it, saying it's not a lot compared to the 60, $70 million he claims he needs to fund his current operation.
So he needs funding, but he rejects the idea of wealth for its own sake.
Exactly. He says money is just for basics. A reliable car, good medicine, food, a roof over your head, fire for warmth, not, as he puts it, a bunch of symbols of power.
Like a huge mansion.
Right. He specifically mocks having a 20-bedroom mansion, joking it's basically just a place for your dog to take a shot.
Huh. Okay, so he's really trying to puncture that image of glamour and power.
Definitely. And he connects this to the listener, saying people really feel inadequate because they see these images from Hollywood or magazines and think that's what matters. He wants to say, no, that's not it.
And he uses an analogy to explain this further.
Yeah, the prodigal son analogy. He feels the psychopaths and sociopaths, as he calls them, get all the attention, like the bad son returning home, while the good people are overlooked.
Because their goodness is mistaken for weakness.
That seems to be his point, that they take our will for weakness. He's arguing that true strength, that inherent goodness, is undervalued and maybe even exploited by those focused on power and control.
Okay, so this deep disillusionment, this feeling of being undervalued, how does he think this control actually works on a mass scale?
Well, He points fingers directly at certain institutions. He says Wall Street, Madison Avenue, the PR people, they wrote books about it.
He names names, right? Or at least a name.
He does. He
Yeah.
specifically mentions Bernays, meaning Edward Bernays, and his book Propaganda from the 1930s. He says Bernays admitted how they did this to everybody.
So he's referencing the father of public relations and drawing a direct line from Bernays' ideas about shaping public opinion to the control he feels is happening today.
Exactly. He sees it as a documented blueprint for manipulation.
And what does he see as the results of this alleged manipulation?
He claims it's incredibly damaging, that they broke up our families, made us fight with each other, and ultimately made us feel pathetic.
Wow. That's a heavy indictment.
It is. But then he offers a counter perspective. He says you should feel pathetic if you're genuinely doing something wrong.
Okay.
But not just for existing. Not when you have the birthright of such an incredible species. He's trying to restore a sense of inherent worth he believes has been stripped away.
This whole narrative, his personal journey, this grand theory, it all seems to lead to a very strong sense of personal mission for him.
Absolutely. He states it very directly.
Yeah.
He has a responsibility to fight this as hard as I can. And he even says he has a responsibility to believe in you, the listener.
And goes even further.
Yeah, saying he's ready to die for you. It's incredibly intense language, showing his level of commitment.
So how does he plan to actually fight this battle? What are the practical steps?
He outlines some specific operational goals. He talks about needing to open a Washington, D.C. bureau and also a London bureau.
Why those cities?
He wants them to be like cities on the hill broadcasting the truth. So, key centers of power and influence where he can establish a platform for his message, his counter-narrative.
Okay, expanding his reach. Does he announce anything concrete related to this?
He does. He calls it his first big announcement. Dr. Jerome Corsi is joining his team.
Corsi. Okay, what role is he taking?
He's going to be the Washington, D.C. bureau chief.
And what background does the speaker give for Corsi?
He paints him as quite accomplished, big in banking, finance, Harvard degrees. Mentions he worked for Donald Trump quite a bit in the last 40 years.
Okay.
Also highlights him as a best-selling author, apparently 4 times #1 on the New York Times list, and a big journalist.
Quite the resume. Any specific achievements mentioned?
Yeah, the speaker credits Corsi as being a major force in defeating the TPP trade deal and influencing Trump to pull out of it. And he notes Corsi is actually moving from New York to D.C. for this role.
Wow, okay. So that's a significant move. Any other big announcements?
Yes, a second key thing. He reveals he's scheduled to appear next Wednesday in 2 days on Joe Rogan's Experience.
Oh, okay. That's obviously a huge platform.
Massive. He notes it reaches 20 million people a week or more. So for him, this is clearly a major opportunity to get his message out there.
And it all ties back to that sense of duty.
It seems so. He reiterates his responsibility to fight this as hard as I can and to believe in you. The Rogan appearance is part of enacting that responsibility.
Now, speaking of influential figures, you mentioned Corsi's connection to Donald Trump. The speaker himself brings Trump up quite directly, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He expresses very strong support for Trump, calls him, quote, for real, and is an honorable person and a good person.
So not just political alignment, but a personal endorsement of his character.
Yes, and he frames it within his larger battle narrative. He says, the enemies of humanity are enemies of Trump because they know he wants to deliver.
Interesting framing. He sees Trump as being on the same side in this soul of humanity battle.
That's how he presents it. He even shares a little anecdote, claims he criticized Trump about torture just last week, and then Trump supposedly came out against it shortly after.
Huh. And he takes that as a sign of response.
It seems he interprets it that way, yeah. It reinforces his commitment to fight for him, seeing Trump as a crucial figure in this whole conflict.
This level of conviction, this us versus them framing, it leads him to issue a pretty stern warning, doesn't it?
Extremely stern. He calls it a final warning.
Who's it aimed at?
At the people promoting violence and civil war. He accuses them of having taken our kindness for weakness and our restraint for weakness.
And the warning itself.
It's stark. He says if these people start their evil plans, they won't be safe anywhere in the world. It's a very direct threat.
Wow. And then he brings in a spiritual dimension to back this up.
He does, yeah. It's quite striking. He talks about a spirit that I represent, which doesn't want to hurt you, but he describes it as a real spirit of grace, and it's a spirit of comfort for good people. But, he continues, if it has to remove people like you, it will. He then repeats one final warning to stand down now.
So it's not just his warning, but a warning from this spiritual force he feels he represents.
Yeah.
That's a significant claim.
It elevates the stakes dramatically, framing it not just as political or social, but as almost cosmic.
He also shares some advice he got, something about God.
Yes, he mentions a preacher in D.C. told him, if you can't run towards God, walk towards God. If you can't walk towards God, crawl towards God.
Keep moving towards God, basically.
Right. If you can't even walk or crawl, look towards God. And he clarifies this isn't about institutional religion necessarily, but the real God that's in your heart.
Connecting it back to that inner strength, that inherent goodness, maybe.
Exactly. It ties his spiritual call directly into his wider message. It's about finding that internal compass, that connection to something bigger to navigate this battle he sees.
Okay, so we have the battle, the personal commitment, the warnings.
Mm-hmm.
What about the tools? How does he see the information war playing out now?
Well, he raises concerns about censorship. He actually claims that communist Chinese net censorship is, quote, already here.
Here, as in the West.
That's the implication. He says they're trying to censor us and block all the free press because, in his view, they're so authoritarian. He sees free speech itself as under direct attack.
Another front in the battle, then.
Definitely. And this leads directly to his final call to action for you, the listener.
What does he want people to do?
He urges everyone to get involved more than ever, specifically to keep the internet open and free. He sees that as crucial.
Does he offer any specific tools or platforms?
He does. He points to his own platform, mentioning Infowars.com map, which he describes kind of dramatically as a new battleship in the fight.
A battleship. Okay.
So the choice he presents to the listener is stark. You can either be part of history and take action, or you can just sit by while this massive struggle unfolds. It's very much framed as an all-in moment.
Right. No middle ground in his view. You're either fighting alongside him or you're passively letting the other side win.
That's the essence of his plea, yeah.
Okay. So that really covers the core of his message in The End of an Era. We've definitely unpacked a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
We've explored this incredibly powerful call to action, which is all rooted in his deep conviction that humanity's facing this critical, maybe even unprecedented battle. We heard his own story, that journey away from elite culture.
Yeah, the disillusionment was really palpable.
Totally. And then his strategic vision for broadcasting the truth, as he puts it, and that really impassioned plea for listeners, for you, to get involved.
Yeah.
To not just watch, but to act.
So maybe a final thought for you to consider as you process all this. When someone claims with such conviction that there's a seismic battle for the soul of humanity happening right now, how do you even begin to discern what's true? Especially amidst such dramatic language.
That's a tough question.
It is. And what does it really mean in practical terms to stand for something bigger than yourself, as he urges? And maybe mull over his idea that kindness isn't weakness, but maybe some kind of transcendent strength. What are the implications of that idea in the context of the fight he describes? Lots to think about.